Welcome to Coffee with Catholic Workers, a podcast made by and for Catholic workers. I'm Theo.
And I'm Lydia. We've both been a part of the Catholic Worker for more than a decade, and we're excited to bring to you conversations with different Catholic workers from around the world.
On today's episode, we're talking to Sara and Paul from the Lake City, Minnesota Catholic Worker Farm. They told us all about the best flavors of kombucha, regenerative agriculture, and what it's like running a Catholic worker business.
Now, here's Sara and Paul.
Well, welcome to Coffee with Catholic Workers. Do you all want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your journey to the Catholic worker movement?
I'm Sarah Freed, and this is my husband, Paul Freed. We're sitting here together. How we got to the Catholic Worker is a great story. I went to school at College of St. Ben's in central Minnesota, and Paul went to St. John's University in central Minnesota. And our junior year, we were asked to go along on to Washington, D.C., to the Atlantic Life Community. And it was a Catholic worker protest kind of vigil. And so we both were like, yeah, let's do this. You can say more, fill in on your time, but and we went there and got dropped off. And we were in Washington, D.C., man. And at this church where there were so many people that they're just milling around and talking about important things. I found that it was just the first time that I really found people who were living out the gospel in a really authentic way. And it was really powerful. We went to the White House, we went to the Pentagon, people were throwing blood. It was like way crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, there's this whole group of people that like we're just here like participating, but also just kind of observing and seeing what's happening. And it was just really powerful. And that seed, when we got back, then I was senior year of college, and that kind of was just there. I didn't do a whole lot of Catholic workery things at that point, but it was there. And then after college, I volunteered at some different at the Catholic Charities Volunteer Corps in St. Paul, now defunct, but it was there for a little while, and I got to do that for 2 years. So I experienced living community, and then after that, then I'll talk a little bit more. But do you want to say anything about your experience in college and that experience in Washington, D.C.?
Sure.
Because I know we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah. So I was kind of looking for I had been reading the gospel in my junior year. I had kind of a transformational event over the summer where I'd read the gospel in a different way. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is pretty crazy. And so we were looking for something, and a friend said, you should look at the Catholic Worker. So when we went there, the one thing that stuck out to me is we went to the basement of this church, and everybody there looked like they were homeless. And I was like, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden this really tall guy got up and it was like, we're going to the White House. And that was Art laughing. And actually I've never even told Art. I've only met Art that one time. He's tall, and I remember he had these old white Nikes on, these like 80s style Nikes, but we all went there and we walked past. He said, we're going to walk past a whole bunch of people sleeping on the streets and go to the capital of the richest place, nation in the world. And up until that point, I had really never seen people sleeping on the streets. I grew up in Minneapolis, but like today, people sleep outside all the time. But back in the early 90s, at least in the Twin Cities, people did not sleep outside. Today they do. You can find tent cities and all that kind of stuff. So that was like, oh my gosh, we're walking by people in December. It was the Feast of the Holy Innocents. And walking by people and then going and doing a prayer vigil, and Art Laughlin's out there. And he's the one I remember the most, probably because he was the tallest. I'm sure other people were talking, but talking about like, we are at the richest nation in the world and we can't house people. And so to echo what Sarah said, I'm like, oh, these folks are authentically living out the gospel in a way I had never experienced before, even close. And so I went back totally hooked on the Catholic Worker. I had actually switched from a biochem major to a theology major, and then graduated, was going to do youth ministry. Wasn't very excited about, but actually got hired to be a religion teacher at a Catholic high school in the Twin Cities. And so then got to bring that Catholic Worker vibe to teaching. And we did lots of great things there. Probably one of the most radical things I did was we brought kids to the School of Americas. The last year I was teaching there, and that was pretty crazy to have high school students there. But it was really beautiful too. And so we got to experiment with teaching and getting kids, but kids were engaged because they were also interested in people living out their faith in a different way. And so Sarah and I started dating then after we graduated, and she was at the Catholic Charity Volunteer Corps, and we started going to this Dorothy Day Center in St. Paul, which is a homeless drop-in shelter. And we started to get to know folks there. We'd go one night a week, and we would check people in and give them their mats and do all that kind of stuff, and then go and drink beer afterwards. And that was the best Thursday night activity you could do as a recent college graduate. And so, then.
Well, and I'll say at the during my volunteer years too, living in community, we lived with like 19. I lived with 19 people, and that really kind of propelled my desire to live in community. Because before that in college, you're like with a roommate or a couple roommates, you're not really living in community. But we had the pillars of, service and community and simple living and prayer. So, or spirituality. And so that in essence, was a really great, kind of like elementary school almost for the Catholic Worker. Because it's a lot of Benedictine values. I came from a Benedictine school, so it just like really solidified everything that I was moving towards. So then after that, we ended up getting married, and we lived in a little apartment that had a lot of character. Squirrels coming through the attic. There was holes like around the light bulbs, and there would be like squirrel heads that would pop in there. We lived in this little tiny apartment. We had to take doors off of some of the rooms because there was like so little space, but totally had character. Loved it. But while we were there, we continued doing this overnight hospital, or not overnight, the emergency shelter, where we'd be checking people in, and people couldn't come in if they had been drinking. They'd have to take a breathalyzer. And we've been doing it, I think, for probably about a year. We had developed some relationships with some of the folks that were regulars. And on 2 different occasions, people hadn't been able to get in because they had been drinking. And Paul and I were kind of like, well, I mean, we've got a couch in our apartment. Like, they could come and stay with us, right? So we had some folks stay at our apartment. I don't think we were consciously trying out hospitality, but we were just like, oh, this is the right thing to do. Like, I know you, you're not able to stay here. Like, it's winter time. You need a place to stay. So then we did that. And a friend of ours from the Winona Catholic Worker called us up, he had gone to school with us, gone to college with us. Mike Sersh. And he called us up kind of out of the blue and said, hey, I'm getting married. I'm moving out of the Catholic Worker down here, and they're going to shut down unless they can find some other volunteers. And I think you guys should do it. And we were like, oh, we hadn't really thought about the Catholic Worker. We were going to go on a bike tour of the Catholic Workers, like all over, like grand plan. And then we were like, well, maybe we can drive as we got a little bit older. We'll drive and do a tour. And then when he had said that, we were like, wow, this must be the Spirit moving. Something's telling us that all these different things, all these different experiences that we've had are kind of coming together, and like, we should listen to this. And so on our 1-year anniversary, we moved to the Winona Catholic Worker at the Dan Corcoran House, the Women and Families House. And we have been in the Catholic Worker, living in community ever since. So we were there for about, I say like 3 or 4 years. We kind of lose count, about 3 or 4 years. And 5, no, it wasn't.
It was 5.
It was 5.
Mm-hmm.
well, before our house was built, but there was like this transition time.
Sure.
Anyway, it was a good amount of time. And while we were there, we were trying to figure out how to support the houses. This is not a novel thing for Catholic worker houses, right? We were living on all donations, and we were like, hey, we need to make some sort of a stronger, dependable income for our houses. And so there were a whole bunch of people who lived at the house, and the extended community. We all kind of were throwing out, brainstorming ideas of what we could do. And one of them was communion wine, because somebody knew somebody else who had a vineyard, right? It's like all those kind of networking kind of things. And so Paul had said, well, I'll try that. I'll try, doing grapes and making wine. And I think that was how you discovered you love to be outside, because Paul's from a suburb of Minneapolis. And so that was kind of our movement towards wanting to be out on the land someplace and starting a community in the country. Okay, you can take the next part.
I'm just going to say, we've given this talk a lot of times. This is concise. I want to pat ourselves in the back a little bit. This is concise. I love it.
Yeah, good.
So I don't think
you can fill in details.
I love
if you need it.
I'm telling you, I'm not teasing you at all. Like we're spot on here.
Yeah.
This is the pinnacle of our storytelling ability. So yeah, then we fell in love with working outside, and honestly, we didn't even know about like the agronomic university part of the Catholic worker. I don't think at that time. So we were just fully into hospitality, and we had Claire, our youngest. So a lot of people know Claire Freed. She is 21 now, but we had her at the Catholic worker, and we loved family hospitality. Loved family hospitality, and still do today. And so then we started looking for land, and Sarah's parents helped us find land in Lake City.
Because that's where I'm from.
That's right, in Lake City, Minnesota, because we didn't say this in the beginning.
Right.
We're from the Lake City Catholic Worker Farm in southeast Minnesota. So if you've listened this long, we like to keep people on the edge of their seats with those very important details. And so in Lake City, and we had actually looked at farmland all around western Wisconsin and southeast Minnesota. Mm-hmm. But we were looking for a place that could grow grapes. And so we then ended up moving to Lake City. We decided to build a strawbale house. And we did that from 2007 to 2009. So we started the Lake City Catholic Worker Farm from 2007 to 2009. We camped out for probably 18 of the 24 months where we built that strawbale house. And that went well. We had over 100 people come and help us over that 2-year period. And then during that time, Sarah and I both have off-farm jobs that we to help pay for the farm and pay for the house and things like that. We were doing that at the same time as well. And then we just started to, we built the house for 2 years. Then we probably took a break, honestly, for a year of we were tired. It was a lot. But we had Suzanne Belongia lived with us. She was one of the co-founding members of the Lake City Catholic Worker Farm. And then we were like, we want to do a vineyard, but we don't know how to do that very well. So we started to do what a lot of Catholic worker farms do, and any small farms. We started to grow vegetables, and we started to sell at farmers markets. We did pastured pigs, we did lambs, we did chickens, we did turkeys, we did a meat CSA, we did Thanksgiving CSA, we did regular CSA, all these things to do all that. And we lived in community. We've had lots of folks live with us as long-term community members, living with us anywhere from a year to probably 4 or 5 years. We've had summer interns with us from 1 month to 6 months. And we do hospitality as well. We've had lots of families and individuals live with us, men, women, and men and children, and women and children have lived with us throughout that time. Yeah. So I think the important point is that we went through all that, and then we had the opportunity to build a deep winter greenhouse. And during that time, this is the way the Spirit moves. We're like, hey, we should put a bathroom on this deep winter greenhouse, because we've been having students come to our farm and college groups and things like that. So we put a commercial kitchen on that bathroom in that building. And once we did that, we're like, we put a bathroom in there, which allowed us to put a commercial kitchen in there, which allowed us to look and say, well, how can we get back to our roots, which is we wanted to make beverages. And we thought wine was too snooty. And I don't mean that as a thing, like that actually is not the right word, and you don't need to edit that out. Wine wasn't family friendly enough for us. Right. So we had, at that time, we had 2 small kids. We'd been to a few wineries. Like, wine in Minnesota is delicious, but kind of an older person thing. We want family friendly things. So Chloe Kennedy, who was lived with us for a couple of years, calling out lots of great Catholic workers that lived with us. And Chloe Kennedy said, you should do kombucha. And honestly, I don't even remember I'd ever had kombucha before then, but we tried some, we liked it. And we started to do kombucha as a really easy way to take the fruits of our land, the fruit and herbs and sometimes vegetables of our land, and make kombucha as well. So we actually have 3 naming structures to our farm, which is number 1, the Lake City Catholic Worker Farm. Number 2, a lot of people still refer to us as the Franz and Franziska Jagerstatter Catholic Worker, because one of the coolest things that we never talk about at all, but we need to talk about more, is that Franz Jagerstatter was a conscious objector, which probably a lot of you heard during World War II. He was a peasant farmer in Austria who was beheaded for resisting. He would not take the oath to Hitler's army. He was beheaded in 1944. His wife lived until like 2018, Franziska. We wrote her a letter and asked her for permission to name our house after Franz and Franziska. And so they did. She gave us permission to do that before she died.
Yeah.
And so we have the Franz and Franziska Catholic Worker House. And then we also have the John the Baptist Beverage Company, which is what people who are not Catholic workers, that's what they know us for, because we sell kombucha on the weekends, and we're looking to expand the beverage options that we do. And I was waiting to tell you all this, that today is the feast of John the Baptist. So we are excited to celebrate that today. And so that's kind of the history of how we got to be here.
Wow, what a journey. And approximately, I know you have condensed it for us, and we're very impressed by the storytelling abilities. How many years have you condensed for us? What is the length of time we're looking at?
We condensed probably when we were in college. It was in 1998 kombucha today. So from 1998 to here, almost
30 years.
30 years.
We were married in 2002.
Right.
And in 2003, we moved to the Woodlawn Catholic Worker on our anniversary. So this September 2nd will be 2003 to 2026 will be 23 years we've lived in a Catholic worker.
Yeah. And
as our daughter Claire likes to sometimes, she's the 21-year-old, she'll sometimes tell Catholic workers, I've lived longer in a Catholic worker than you and in more Catholic workers than you. So sometimes when people are kind of picking on her a little bit. So she's like, I've been in there for 21 years and 2 different Catholic workers. So it's fun so it's a 21 year.
Yeah.
Or 23 year condensation.
And we also have, in that time, we also have two more daughters, Louise and Millie, who accompany us to all of our different Catholic worker gatherings and protests and stuff. So
Catholic workers are home. We could tell 100 stories about the Catholic worker being our home. And one thing I love about the Catholic worker is, like, we just got to see Theo a couple months ago down in Kansas City at the nuclear weapons plant protest, and even though I've only met Theo maybe, I don't know, 3 times, 2, I'm not even sure, like not that many. I just always feel the best when we're hanging out with Catholic worker folks, and whether it's a little conversation or a bigger conversation, it's home. The words are home for us.
It's home. Yeah.
There's so many interesting parts of that story. Like, I don't know, one thing that jumped out to me is, for people who don't know, what the heck is a straw bale house and how do you make one? And were you like living in a tent at your farm? And did you have a small child living in a tent too? And what was that all like?
Great question. Yes. Okay. So first of all, a straw bale house is a house made from straw bales, not hay bales, but straw bales, the waste material from growing grains. So we have kind of a hybrid house, because usually it's built like Legos, where you are laying them flat down and then you cross them kind of, and then you compress them all with the roofing structure. We have 2x6s because we have a 2-story house, slab on grades. We don't have a basement, but we have a 2x6s, and then the straw bales are on end in between. So if you can envision, it's like insulation. But we have really wide walls, and then we have walls that are plastered also. So it's a earth plaster on the inside and the outside. And we had enough clay in our soil here on our land that we were able to use our clay for our plaster, and then it's straw and it's sand. So we were able to find sand locally too. So it was really, it's legitimately like we could knock down our walls and they could just decompose into the earth. So that's pretty cool to see.
It's legit.
It's legit. And so yes, while we were building this, so I will say all the strawbale building books that you read are like, oh, you can get this done in like 2 months, and you just get your friends to come and you just do this and it's done. So we were planning not 2 months because we knew that we had more to do within this like 2-story house, but yeah, it took a lot longer. It took about 2 years. We camped in a tent. We had a little tent that it was Paul,
3-person tent.
Paul, myself, and Claire, and she slept in the middle. We had an air mattress that bumped us up, and in storms, I remember the top of the tent, like it would blow, and it was almost on our faces. So those were storms that we like were just caught surprised with, right? Some big storms we were able to go to my parents who lived in town. So, but that, yeah. So we lived in a tent. Lots of people asked, well, what do you think? Look, your daughter, what does she think of this? I'm like, she's 3 years old. She loves it. She's sleeping with mom and dad every night. Like, what 3-year-old doesn't want to just cuddle up with mom and dad at night? And she gets to hang out and play outside, and she's swinging on scaffolding, and she's, safely, but she's like having a great time. And there's lots of people. We had a lot of people come and help. It was really a truly community building event, I would say. So we had a lot of people come out and help, and she got to meet a lot of people. It was Catholic workers and community mates or community members of Lake City area, strangers, relatives, friends, like a ton of different people. But I do have to tell you that while we were building this strawbale house, we had to rig up a tarp system, so we could a pulley system to pulley up a tarp to cover the walls. Tarps. Yep. Yeah. To cover the walls while we were building, because in case of rain, which we had a lot of, you don't want the straw to get wet because then it gets moldy. You can't do that. That's a no-no. So a few iterations of these tarps went on, but the ones we found were a great silver color, right? So oftentimes, if we weren't working on them, we would have this silver gray tarp all the way around our house. And we occasionally went to the Dairy Queen while we were building, okay, because you know what? We needed to have some ice cream. So I was down at the Dairy Queen while we were building, and the woman was there, and she said, "Hey, are you the ones that have that gray house up there?" And I was like, "Yes." "What are you hiding under there?" And I was like, oh goodness, people are probably talking like we're secretly creating something underneath here, but really it was just a waterproof system. So I thought that was pretty funny. We also got a lot of jokes about, haven't you ever heard of the 3 Little Pigs? And you're gonna get your house blown down, and ha ha ha. That got a little old after a while, but that was a clever joke that seemed to be very popular. And then we lived in a tent. I think that tent, after the first year, the little tent that we lived in, I think fell apart. So we got another little one.
We got 12.
We got the big one that we tried.
And a wood stove in.
Yes.
And we camped out for the winter. Sarah, actually, that first winter, Sarah got cancer during the winter, cancer of the placenta, which is pretty rare.
Yes, a molar pregnancy.
Yep. And so for probably 6 or 8 weeks of that, we lived at Sarah's parents' house, which was not far away.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about camping out in the winter is that it's cold and it's dark, and we would put Claire to bed at 7 o'clock, and we could not keep our eyes open because it's cold, and you're in the sleeping bag putting her to sleep. And so one person would be like, "I'm gonna go put Claire to sleep," and then you would never see them the rest of the night because they would be, you couldn't resist. So I can get out. It's 10 degrees outside in the winter, or I can do that. So we actually ended up moving the tent right next to the house so that we could we could get ourselves up and keep working at the house. But I want to say that we had a lot of people helping us. Suzanne Belanger again, and lots of folks, and Jake Olsen, who's from Chicago, also was pivotal at this as well, and Becky Lambert and lots of great
Anthony
folks.
Kiefer.
Anthony Kiefer. So.
Your brother James.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people.
And so now you're doing kombucha. What's that like selling? What's it like to have sort of what do you consider as a Catholic worker business, cottage industry, community ministry? How do you sort of envision it?
Yeah. So we're actually in the process right now of figuring out like what like products do we offer folks, because we want to be a farm that is self-sufficient financially. That's one of our goals, and that's number one. And then we want that's the financial side of it. Number two, we want to offer products that honor the interconnectedness of all things, so that everybody benefits from the products we make. So we want to make sure that we're not just taking advantage of people who grow things in China or whatever it might be. So we this is part what we think our Catholic worker calling is to create what we call a truly just business from top down. So if we only use local flavorings, or if we can't get things locally, we buy them fair trade. If they're bought internationally, if it's domestic, it has to be organic. So we get the regenerative organic sugar from Florida, and we get fair trade tea from China, because you have to use tea when you're making kombucha. So it honors interconnectedness of all things. It's lifting up all growers. It's building soil. We do regenerative agriculture on our farm as well. And so that's core to who we are. And so to try to be self-sufficient, to try to make products that are making the world a better place, and also try to bring about God's kingdom right here and right now, that's what the beverages allow us to do. And it brings people to our farm who would not generally come to our farm. And I kind of tell the story frequently. I'd say, if we grew the best tomatoes in the whole world, which we grow really great tomatoes, we would never be able to support ourselves in this farm. It just is never. We live in a rural area. We go to the farmer's market to sell kombucha, but it's never going to happen with our skill set, what we're called to be, and all those kinds of things. We're called to be beverage makers. And we also are very much exploring with a lot of great Catholic workers, Antoth and Catholic worker folks in Ames and other folks, is what does it mean to run a Catholic worker farm? What does it mean to sell your goods? What does it mean to support yourselves? And how to do that in a way that not only is just building the kingdom of God for yourself and be like, oh, we live this great life, but to also be able to invite others to participate in that through not just purchasing things, but also the other things we're looking at doing is we do lots of education as well. And so last year alone, we had 500 student visits to the farm, meaning that 500 students came. And actually what it is, to be realistic, is that we had 250 students come in the spring and plant things, and most had never been to a farm before. And 250 those same students came in the fall and harvested and made salsa and made kale salad and things like that as well, and tried kombucha and all these things. So we are about selling things to support ourselves. We are about doing education for students. We're also about education for families that come, because we will talk a lot about health and kombucha and other things when people come out to our kombucha stand, open every Saturday during the summer and fall months from 10 to 2. Come on out and get some great kombucha. I've got to do my little plug there. The John the Baptist Beverage Company.
Yep, perfect.
But we are definitely exploring that, right? Because it is a shift. We are not a city house in the country, for sure.
Right.
We are exploring what it means to talk Catholic worker language, to build a craft economy. That means working with our hands, using real goods from the earth. Again, not doing things that take advantage of other people, but to lift those things up, and to do that in a way that is healthy for people and delicious. So there's lots of different things tugging on each other to walk that line and to do that. So we are definitely in uncharted territory, figuring these things out. But so it's exciting and exhausting, just like running a Catholic worker house or whatever that might be. But we feel that one of the most unexplored areas of the Catholic worker is this idea of running just business, but also as a nation, right? Where are the just businesses that are holding the light to say there is a different way to do business in this world? And we're going to try to figure out, the term we've been using lately is win, lose, and draw. Like, we're going to win some, we're going to lose some, and we're going to have some draw, but we have dedicated our whole life we are dedicating our whole life to running this just business and to be able to do that. But so that's the Catholic worker, like economic side of it. So if you read the aims and means, the Catholic worker has things to say about economics, right? And as a Catholic worker, house of hospitality, it can be kind of hard to realize those sometimes. That's not a criticism. It's just like, when we lived at the Catholic worker in Winona, we took donations, and that here we are looking at those things of how are we building that truly just economy, and all the things that Dorothy had to say about those things as well. The other thing that we really enjoy doing is hospitality. So we like to say, and this is really more of a summary, it's not exactly true, but 6 months out of the year, we have somebody living at our place as a guest. And many times those guests want to work and earn some money. And so we've been doing that for the last few years. Of guests can come and live with us. If they want to work, they can. If they don't want to work with us, they don't have to. And so some of them will work and earn some money, so they have some money to go, because that's unfortunately how the world functions. And so, but that's part. So we're trying to build a business that's not just supporting our own family, but also supporting would be able to support guests to come and live with us. And since, this is a Catholic Worker podcast, could they leave with $500 or $1,000 in their pocket after 2 months of living with us, right? Or be able to have a down payment for an apartment, definitely have some work experience, and also to be able to have a reference for a job is important as well. But as we know, as Catholic workers, right, it's not like we're lifting them up by any means. It's a co-transformational process where we're learning from folks, they're learning from us. We're living together, all those things that I think resonate with Catholic workers, right? It's not that typical, like, hey, we're going to come in and we're changing people. Not it at all. But if people come and they want to share in the growing experience, it would be great after a couple months with us to give them some money so they could take that to do that. So as an example, we just had a family living with us. They moved in on Easter Sunday. It was a mom and that had 2 kids, a 9-year-old and a 20-year-old. And they, typical story we hear in the Catholic worker, the dad was in the Iraq war and came back and ended up committing suicide 2 years ago. And their family just, all the things that you think would go wrong went wrong. And they lived in a hotel for 5 months. And then we got a call, desperate. They need a place to go, else to be on the street. So absolutely, come and live with us. The reason I tell you that story is the 20-year-old had not worked in 2 years since his dad died. 20 years old. And came, and the family actually moved out, but the 20-year-old is staying on as a summer intern and working with, never lived on a farm, never worked on a farm before. And I've said, we talked about, like, this is the dream. Not saying that to brag. It's not a brag. Like, this is the dream that somebody could come offer us and say, like, I like it here so much. I want to stay here for the summer and I want to learn to farm and I want to do these things and I want to grow food and participate and bring life to what we do here, because just like hospitality can be exhausting, farming can be exhausting. So when this young man comes and brings the day, I'm like, I love living with this person because they are bringing joy and they're bringing a sense of like discovery to farming. We've been teaching them how to milk goats, and so we were out there yesterday morning and we're showing how to milk goats. Stick your thumb out. I'm going to show you how I squeeze the goat udder and working on that. And when I said to him yesterday morning, because stories are the best, I was like, all right, do you want to be done? He's like, hey, I'm just getting my muscle memory going here. He said, and so it's great to explore, what does that mean? What do all these things mean in the context of being a Catholic worker and trying to be true to that vision of personalism, but also that economic vision, and be able to hold a light up and say, there is a different way to do business. We don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. But win, lose, and draw, we're going to try it. We're going to give it a shot.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I said what kombucha was.
I don't know. Kombucha. I'll talk a little bit. Kombucha is a effervescent fermented tea, and so it's made like Paul was saying, we get tea and sugar, and then we flavor with things that we find, or things with edible things that we grow or can forage around our farm or in this general area. So we have a lot of people that will say, we've had a lot of plums on our tree. We have too many. We've done all the jam we can. Can you guys use plums? Absolutely, we can. Another gentleman who's known us said, I have red currant bushes that he's like, he grew up harvesting them and he is over harvesting them. Like, he is done doing that. And he said, if you want them, come out and get them. I'll let you know when they're ripe. And so we like to do that and showcase what this place tastes like? Not our farm necessarily, but like Southeast Minnesota. What does the Driftless area taste like? Because people they're not as rooted anymore in a space or in a place, because you can get bananas from someplace, you can get lettuce from California, you can get, East Coast stuff, like it's all over the place. But when you focus on what does this place taste like, it's really interesting. So that's what we do with our kombucha. And then, like Paul said, we sell it on our stand on Saturdays. And that's important to us right now because we can create relationships when people come out. So we often, like, if they're new, we will talk about all sorts of different things with them, but like we can create relationship with people. And so we have a lot of people that know what's going on with our lives, and we know what's going on with their lives. And that's really important. It's hospitality, right? We're offering hospitality, and we get offered hospitality, but not within our house necessarily, or, like staying with us, but it's this regular touch base with people, which is really beautiful. I really enjoy it. And I think we both are very impressed that in rural Southeast Minnesota, people will come out to the country to get kombucha. I am so impressed that people who have had, like, we have lots of people who had never tried it before, and they are brave and they'll try it and they will keep coming back for kombucha. And I just absolutely love it because it just shows that we have a good product and that they support us in what we're doing. So
Sarah, tell them some of the delicious flavors we have with these local Southeast Minnesota flair.
Thanks, Paul. I thought you'd never ask. We've done like elderberry mint sage. We do cherry basil, strawberry basil. We do apple mint, we do honey lemon balm, which is lemon, honey and lemon balm, which is an herb, and ginger, because we've grown ginger here. And we also know a farm in the general area that grows ginger. We do turmeric sage.
My two favorites.
Hold on. I can't. Raspberry jalapeno.
Yeah.
What was your other one?
Grape lavender.
Oh, grape lavender.
We use wine grape juice from our neighbors. So
yep.
Lots of great things.
Lots of great flavors.
Mm-hmm. So even if you find us slightly annoying or we talk too much, the kombucha is so good. It helps to cover over any of those
Yep,
annoyances.
eccentricities.
Absolutely.
Of us.
Absolutely.
You mentioned regenerative agriculture earlier. I wonder if you could talk about what is that, and how do you try and do it, and how does it tie into your understanding of the Catholic worker?
That's a great question. First of all, regenerative agriculture, I don't know if what the definition, a definition would be, it's restoring topsoil, regenerating what we have. So it's generally going to be, and I want to tell you that we didn't know anything about farming when we moved to the Catholic worker, just so you know, or moved out here. So all this we've learned throughout many years. So you can do it too. Be a Catholic worker farmer. That I think one of the concepts that we hold to is that it helps to regenerate and do like a soil building ecology. It's a polyculture. So instead of a monoculture, so grapes are a monoculture. You grow one style of thing. Corn and soybeans are a monoculture. We're trying to go multiple things approximate to each other so that they can benefit, because we're trying to copy the forest model. In the forest, there are no inputs. In the forest, there are no pesticides. There are no herbicides. So we're trying to copy that model, but on a farm scale. And so what that means, it's kind of hard to explain verbally, but what that basically means is that we are trying to have these little forest edges all over our farm. If you're looking for a book, Mark Shepard wrote a great book called Restoration Agriculture, and that we copied, or that we are using, not copied, we are using his methods. He actually came out to our farm. He is friendly to Catholic workers. And but so it's, in essence, if you think about row crops, which is corn or soybeans, it's all one crop. We have multiple crops with lots of grass and hay in there, growing lots of different things. A lot of farmers, like the folks at Antoth, Mike Miles and Barb Cass, they run animals through their areas to poop on the land and to restore the topsoil, which is awesome. We don't currently do that. We might not do that. We're not sure, because with people coming out, animal poop attracts flies. So we're figuring out other ways. Now we've got goats and llamas, and they don't attract as many flies. So we spread the poop out and those kinds of things. But another part of restoration agriculture is running animals over your land, because poop builds topsoil. So in essence, that was a lot of words to come out and say, instead of destroying the topsoil, which a lot of conventional agriculture does, we're trying to restore the agriculture, restore the topsoil. Instead of using just one crop over a large area, we're doing multiple crops in a single area there as well. And I think it ties into the Catholic worker, because the Catholic worker is about life, and it's about growth, and it's about not variety. What's the diversity. And so we're growing a diversity of crops over a large area for a greater health on our farm. And I think when you visit Catholic workers, you see a diversity of people and things and foods and all those things that allow you to do that as well. It's more labor intensive, but it also, one thing that's really cool about kombucha, if you're still interested in this whole restorative agriculture and kombucha, is that we make a base kombucha and then we flavor it. So the cool thing is, any fruit or herb we grow, we can put in kombucha and it will typically taste good. So that's cool for us. So this restoration of agriculture, this is how the Holy Spirit moves. We didn't plan to do restoration of agriculture and then do kombucha and all these things. They came together by just listening to the Spirit. And by listening to the Spirit, I mean listening to our community members like Chloe Kennedy and Maria Berg and all the folks that have lived with us throughout the years, who have given different ideas on how to do these things. And so it's cool to take what we have and be able to use it in the products that we have to be able to give, again, a healthy and delicious product as well. Did that answer your question, Theo? Did that give you a little bit of a picture or no?
We also do a big mulch garden.
Oh yeah.
So we aren't tilling that part of it. So we can, we're just, because when you till, then you're disturbing all the microbiome in that top layer of soil. And so by not tilling, we're just adding more things to it. We are creating soil and creating a really great system there. We also have 52 acres up here, I should say. Also, we have like 9.5 acres of native prairie grass and wildflowers. So that also has been going for over 15 years. And so that also was on former cropland, former corn, actually. So we were able to, that is a way to restore soil also to how this space, like this area, general geographical area, looked like a long time ago.
And so you've got the kombucha going, you've got regenerative agriculture going, you've got some hospitality going. That's a lot of stuff going on. Is it just your family on the farm, or do you have other long-term Catholic workers as well?
Well, currently we have our family, and my mom and dad moved in about almost 2 years ago in kind of a little addition. And then we have a summer intern. And then we have had so that's what we have currently. And over the course of however many years, it's just kind of I use my hands a lot, so I'm sorry. It's like it ebbs and flows. Of 1 year, we had 5 people stay with us over the summer, like 5 interns. We had a couple of longer term community members, like 2 for 2 years. We had so it really depends at the time of the year and the time of the season, I guess. We also have a few other people who support us in an extended community. My sister comes and helps us out with kombucha and whatever else we need to do. Weeding, there's always weeding to do. And we have another college student from the local town who comes and works with us. This is his second year during the summer again too. So yeah, we have a lot going on, but it tends to always everything tends to get done at some point. Now, maybe it's not the greatest. It's not done how I would have liked to do if that was the only thing I had to focus on, but it's not. And as a Catholic worker, I think people understand that there's things that, yeah, like that push and pull against each other. And so we don't do anything perfectly well. Hospitality takes precedence for us. And then keeping like animals alive would take another precedence, right? But, and so if we don't get as many vegetables planted, then that's okay. If we, as we hoped, or I don't know, if our house is messy, it is what it is, because it's just how it is. Or we have tall grass outside. Well, it just is going to happen. We get things done at some point.
And we also had that during COVID, we had 2 community members with us for about 2 years, Esther Lou and Caroline Wright. And, and when they moved out, that was when we also started getting the kombucha stand going. It was an outdoor stand, so people still came out during COVID. Is when they moved out, we decided to not pursue having any longer term community members for like 2023, 2024. Not because they weren't great, because they were great. Shout out to both of them. But we had to pause and say, what are we looking for in the next people? Because we're moving from a farm that was growing vegetables and kind of like dipping our toe into this business Catholic worker to being like, this is our future. If somebody wants to come and live with us, they would have for a longer term. They would have to be interested in this Catholic worker business stuff. And that is something that it's unique, right? I said, we're still figuring out this is an experiment. So we kind of just sit there, who are we looking for? Not that we turn people down, that I'm not saying that at all. But what are we looking for? And then what are we offering people, right? And so that's where we actually are working towards paying off the farm, which would then allow us to work more on the farm. And so it ties in with the hospitality part too, is like, we live in the country. And so like, could Lydia move here without a car? Sure, Lydia and their family could, but it would be hard because the closest town is 5 miles away. That's got 5,000 people. And the next closest town is 20 miles away. So if you wanted to bike with your family, so the realistic part of where we're at is if a person wanted to come and live with us, they probably are going to have a car. And a lot of folks that do, even summer interns will have a car. Okay, well, if they're going to have a car, they need to pay the insurance for that car and the upkeep on that car. So that ties back to our idea of the same thing with our guests. How are we going to bring in enough income to be able to give people what they need to survive in a rural setting and be able to do that? And actually, people have come with us without a car, and we share our vehicles too. We have a truck and a car, and that's great too. And I could be wrong about this. We talk about Catholic workers and people coming living. Like, I think it's this there's a shifting landscape from when we started in 2004 to now to people's financial needs. 2004, a lot of people didn't have cars, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have personal computers and all those kinds of things. So even for Catholic workers, it feels like, and maybe people would criticize me for this, but I'm just saying it feels like the Catholic worker, like when we moved to Winona, we didn't work and we just lived off of whatever, because we didn't have a cell phone, we didn't have a computer, any of those things. If we were to do that now, there would have to be some minimum income that we would be getting to
living expenses
for the type of lifestyle, as being very transparent, former middle class folks, and all those things, and staying connected. It's hard to do that with no money. There's lots of great Catholic workers that I look up to. You look at Eddie Bloomer in Des Moines, and I mean, it seems like, he just lives on nothing, right? And gives that. And I'm like, man, I want to be more like that guy. Out on this farm, it can be hard for people to live out here without some type of income. And people want to be on the farm. So that's, again, I think hopefully people can see we're painting a picture of this idea of leaning into this agroeconomics and craft business in a way that supports people to live a Catholic worker lifestyle, not a 401k, getting ready for retirement lifestyle.
Yeah, it can be hard to navigate all that stuff. And I sometimes talk to people about the Catholic workers all exist on a variety of spectrums, kind of this one's protest a whole lot and these ones never do, and they just do the hospitality. And if you're going to jail all the time, it's hard to keep the animals on the farm alive and stuff that,
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think that we love about the Catholic workers, that we can live simply. We can we can go to Kansas City and participate with other Catholic workers, and feel welcomed in that amongst that spectrum there as well. Not just welcome, but also just by virtue of being together, to be challenged to say, how can we continue to live closer to the gospel, closer to the land, closer to all those things. And so, and how do we do that in a authentic way? Because at the end of the day, as Catholic workers, we're only answerable to ourselves and our community members and the people who live with us. And so how do we do that authentically? And so that's why we like to share, this is where we're at, not to cover it up and be like, oh, we don't earn anything and we live in voluntary poverty. I don't even know if you could live on a farm. Barb Cass talks about this. Can you live on a farm and call it voluntary poverty? We have the best food in the world, or matchable. Like we have an abundance of delicious food. It's not voluntary poverty.
Yeah.
Now we are in poverty and by living in community with people in the same house and doing hospitality. So there's definitely a poverty of space and a poverty of time and all those things as well. But when it comes to financial poverty, we are not financially poor. I mean, like we have to keep the farm going in that way. And so that is a struggle for us in that way. That's why we like to talk with people openly about this is how we do it in this way. But we talk about many times, like we feel like you can't take people in who have nothing and spend money on yourself like crazy. It doesn't work. You just can't do that. So that's why doing hospitality is so important to us, because then, when we have money, it's like, well, are we spend this on ourselves, or are we sharing this with these people who live with us, or are we investing it into the farm? Right. That's another caveat. Just like people in houses too, right? People in houses say, we've got this money. Are we putting a new roof on, or are we helping this person get the next month's rent, or all those things? So It's that tension that we value, that of how do we do that on a farm, which again is different than a house. Because when we lived at the World Catholic Worker, we got donations and we didn't really worry about money. Budget is a thing out here. Planning is a thing. Creating a business plan is a thing. And I don't think that Peter Morin would, and again, people might disagree, but I don't think he would say those should not be things. He as a farmer who lived, he lived on a farm, and they had to sell things and budget things and plan and forecast who's buying what, how are they going to buy it, what's the delivery method, how are we going to store these things, and do all those things. So but that's kind of the fun of the challenge of living on a Catholic worker farm. So, but we would prefer to be really honest about it, because then people can share honestly with us and also challenge us in ways to how we can live more sustainably and live out these Catholic worker values.
It is the perpetual issue with all of us Catholic worker idealists, of the tension of wanting to live into like our perfect utopia of community and life, and also recognizing like systems just aren't set up that way. They just doesn't work quite yet. And how do we create a place in which we are able to live into it as fully as we can?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's why great podcasts like yours are so great, because it helps us to share and think and reflect and grow together as a community, even though we don't all live in the same place. But there's I feel like there's a general respect between Catholic workers. So when people say things, we listen to each other.
Yeah. Because we're all trying to figure that out, right? Yeah. Because we barter for a lot of things. But we realized quickly that when we have people living with us who are then moving to their own place, like the system, right, is still set up. They need to pay for an apartment, and that's by money. They can't barter things. Like they can't, that the landlord is going to want cash, or, so that's one of the things of money is here, it's around, and we need to, it's a tool that we can use. So,
and that ties back to the vision we were saying. There's a different way to do business.
Exactly.
So we have to show that there's a different way to do business. Just like there's a different way to live in doing hospitality, right? And so how do we do business in a way? And then also, how do we invite others? And we haven't quite done this yet, because, we're still figuring out, but how do we invite others to think about how to run their business in a way? Just like I keep going back to this, Theo and I and Sarah and Louise and Millie were at the nuclear weapons plant in Kansas City, and one of the ideas we're saying is encouraging folks to take a different job, who work at the nuclear weapons plant, because all of them were driving past and were holding up signs and doing those things. And Millie and Louise made a sign along with the folks from the White Rose Catholic Worker Farm, saying, you know, my future's on the line, right? And so if we're encouraging folks to take a different job, they need to have some job to go to. And what is that just job? And I'm not sure. I'm not saying we're the only just job by any means. There's a lot of great companies out, you know, or farms, I would say lots of organic farms and things like that. But how do we try to set a different standard for the way that we do business?
Well, as we wrap up, do you want to tell us, besides the kombucha, what is the best of your amazing food that you have there on the farm?
I will say, well, if we're talking, I'm going to start non-farm things first. We are, well, I want to add one more thing about the business. I meant to add this later, but I'll say it now. And I won't go too quickly. But, you know, he's laughing because I'm talking about business. Is that it's all started as a Catholic worker business because we also need to sell things that people want. So even though I say everything we say, or I say about selling healthy things, that's true. We also sell kombucha slushies, and they have a lot of sugar, but people go crazy over them. They love slushies. It's not a health food.
But it's got kombucha in it.
It does. It's healthier than the slush you'd get at the store. But that's another thing, attention as well. How do we sell things that are healthier than they get in the store? That's kind of what we're trying to do as well. The reason I say that is that we also do baked goods, and we're really dipping our toe into some fermented like sourdough and things like that as well. But Claire just made some cream puffs for Millie's birthday, and they were absolutely amazing. So the baked goods we make are really good. But I love, and if people walk around, if you ever come to the farm, one of my favorite things to do is walk around and just pick things and eat them. So we, like right now, the mulberries are ripe. So we're picking mulberries. The cherries are ripe. So we're picking those. I love to walk people through the prairie grass and pick the wild anise mint. And anise is black licorice. And I make people eat it. I make them eat it. And there's 3 different flavors that come throughout the entire thing. So I say, keep it in your mouth, even if you don't like black licorice, because it's black licorice first, and then it gets like a little tart, and then it gets super sweet at the end in the back of your mouth. And people are like, really? And they're like, oh my gosh, it is. And then they're like, oh, Paul, you're so right. You're so smart. I'm just kidding. That's not true. They don't say that. But I like to walk around and just pick things and eat them. But the wild anise mint is such a wild thing that this has been growing here for thousands of years. And you can walk in and eat it and get such an immense flavor from something that's natural. So I said baked goods, which are not good for you, and wild anise mint.
Okay, and my choices would be, I do love the cherry tomatoes that we grow. They're really delicious. And then the herbs that we have growing, because like we don't have a whole lot of vegetables ripening right now besides radishes. And I eat radishes, but then they, you know, they're not my favorite. But they're the first ones that come up. But the herbs that we have, because I like walking around too and having a little bit of sage, a little bit of thyme. We have lemon balm, we have lavender, like all of those, mint, all those different things are really great just to be like, oh, just nibbling on when you need a little bit of a fresh green. And then the other thing, we have we milk our goat, our goats. And so we have goat milk, and the goat milk is really delicious. Yes. And we have made cheese out of it. And so the goat cheese is just primo right now. It's delicious. That may change. If you were to ask me in the fall, I may be like, oh yeah, the pumpkin and the squash are my favorite right now. But right now it's the goat cheese and sourdough bread, and then the herbs that we have. So, I mean, lap of luxury right now. We are right up there.
Can I finish with a quick story that exemplifies what it's like to be a Catholic worker in a in protest mode? It involves you, Theo. Is that correct? Okay. So I'll wrap up because it reminded me of this story, and I'll remember the story for a long time. So we were I keep talking about this protest at the Kansas City nuke plant. There was tornado sirens, and it was pouring and hailing. And so we had to delay our vigil. Yeah. And so we all drove in cars. We were sitting up in a line. The way it's laid out, we're like probably, I don't know, a mile away from the weapons plant. And we're all in a line, and it's raining and it's pouring and the sirens are going off. And there's questions, should we do this or not? And so people are like, I think we should not do this. And I think we should do it. And so we're just kind of sitting there trying to figure it out. During that time, it's myself and Sarah and Louise and Millie and Johanna from the White Rose Catholic Worker and Brian Terrell. And we're all sitting in the car, and we're just kind of, well, we're just chatting a little bit. And Brian's like, hey, you want to see how I made mozzarella cheese? And I stretched it out. And so he pulls out his phone, and it's pouring outside. The sirens are off, and we're watching Brian Terrell show us a video on his phone of him making fresh goat milk mozzarella and laughing in the video. He's like, you can't make it without laughing. And then he's laughing, watching himself.
And we were having a great time because we're like, wow, this is amazing. We need to make this.
And then Theo walks up, knocks on the window. I roll down the window. And this is how I remember the story. And I was like, what's up? And you're like, Theo's like, well, what are we going to do? And I was like, well, we're thinking about going to dinner, but I'm not, or going to breakfast and then coming back, but I'm not so sure. And I remember Theo being like, why don't we just do it now? And I looked at Brian and Sarah, I'm like, should we just do it now? Because the rain was starting to wane a little bit. You know, it was going from a heavy pouring to just raining. And I was like, I think we should just do it right now. And Brian's like, let's just do it. And Theo's like, let's do it. And we ran around and told everybody, let's go. And so the Catholic Worker Farmer's life is encapsulated in that. We are going to watch a video about making mozzarella cheese. And then minutes later, we're going to be at the nuclear weapons plant telling folks, don't build nuclear weapons anymore. And so that's just the life of a activist Catholic worker farmer.
What a great story. Because picturing living out the values, all of them, every day.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming and talking with us. We always really enjoy. We have like the best gig of talking to random Catholic workers across the country and getting to hear everyone's different stories and what's going on in different places.
Thanks for doing that. It's important. We appreciate it, and we look forward to catching up on some of the podcasts and listening to future ones as well. So keep up the good work.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks again to Sara and Paul. I had no idea that they'd originally thought of doing a Catholic worker vineyard. That's actually been like a distant fantasy of mine for a long time. I was like, oh, you do your like sacramental wine or something for your craft industry, sell it to churches or whatnot. And then, it could be like a vacation place for the other Catholic workers, like going to a winery or something for your Catholic worker vacation.
I will admit, I don't know much about the communion wine business, but I do wonder how large the market is. How much wine could you sell in a Catholic worker communion wine business?
I can't imagine living in a little tent with 3 people, 2 adults and a young one. I guess on a certain level, being in a 3-person tent with 3 people means it'll be a little bit warmer because you're all huddled in there. But I guess I'm a big, tall guy. I barely want to sleep in a 3-person tent with just me.
Yeah, and especially would not want to be in there through Minnesota winters. That does not sound like the easiest experience, for sure. But it is interesting. I think sometimes sometimes we both, Theo, you and I are sometimes counted as like young Catholic workers, and we're really not all that young anymore. But it is interesting sometimes to think back and like, the times when you're just starting out and like everything seems possible. And it's like, yeah, let's go live in a tent, or yeah, let's go do this. Let's start this giant initiative. And it just sort of happens. And I think that's one of the benefits of youth, or maybe it's sometimes being naive, but just like that boundless energy to be like, yeah, why not? And a lot of the time it works out. Looking back, sometimes some of those decisions are a little crazy. So I am curious on their retrospective of you know, if they would ever go live in a tent again or recommend that to anybody else.
Yeah, it takes energy to do all that stuff. I feel like a common one for young, new, excited Catholic workers is that like we would often try and like save every piece of half rotten fruit that came into the house. Just like, oh yeah, we're gonna make a giant batch of applesauce or whatever that day, and just spend hours making applesauce. And then eventually, you get a little bit older or been around longer, and you have less time for applesauce. I suspect living in a tent, at least for me, might be similar.
Sure. I did really appreciate, their focus and exploration and thinking about, like, is it how can you have a Catholic worker business, and how can we have businesses that are just? And I do think there's a piece as we think about the Catholic worker movement and ways that different people can join or live out the movement. Not everybody can go and live in like a house of hospitality, and not everyone can go and like commit to a life of financial poverty. It is an interesting piece with the Catholic worker that there is a space for exploration in this economic realm of what does it mean to work, and create something and produce something in a way that is just, and in a way that in our current system that requires money, like allows people to live. And then there's always the tension of like, how far can we push and still be Catholic worker? I think sometimes our house here in Chicago sometimes struggles with that tension of like, how much do we have to do? But then maybe even considering that is like a capitalistic mindset of how much do we have to do? How much do we have to work at in order to be perfect? In order to sort of be good enough.
Yeah, well, luckily, there's no Catholic worker boss, so really you just have to say you're doing it, and you're a Catholic worker. Sometimes the Catholic worker farmers like to say that like they're the ones who are really doing the Catholic worker, that like, having like a small business based on the land and like locally producing things to sell locally is like the vision Peter Morin had for like the society we should be building. And that like really, yeah, he envisioned like small cities or villages of like family run businesses, kind of like their kombucha thing. And Dorothy Day has like a quote where she says that she asked Peter Morin, one day looking at the soup line, like, is this what you envisioned? And he didn't kind of really affirm it exactly. He's like, well, at least it like arouses the conscience or something like that, So yeah, some of the Catholic worker farmers argue that like, yeah, like doing a project, like creating a new economy and like being an example of a new economic model is like really more in line of what Peter dreamed of, at least at the beginning of the movement. And of course, it's always dynamic and changing, and people are trying new things, like kombucha businesses.
Yeah, constant evolution of what fits for the current times and how things play out. That's kind of the fun thing about the movement, is that it didn't stop with Peter and Dorothy, and it's still going on. Well, this wraps up then another episode of Coffee with Catholic Workers. We want to thank our Catholic worker audio engineer, Chris, as well as David Hayes for our music and Becky McIntyre for our graphic.
Thanks for joining us again for some clarification of thought. We hope today's conversation has been enlightening, and maybe even that you're encouraged to go out and help build a world where it's easier to be good.